A couple of days later, he did die, and we came to the conclusion that we had only two things left we could do. One, we could stay there and die, because the Chinese weren't taking care of us. They were just housing us until we did die, or we could try to escape. So we came up with a plan that we went up to the hill, we called up the hill at night, and we made a POW sign from rice straw. And then we decided that one of us was going to have to escape. So we all decided it was okay, he went first there. That night he traded his flight jacket to a passing Korean farmer for a sack of gruel. And we had enough gruel to last for about 3 days, which we figured was the amount of time that it would take for him to get to our forces. If he wasn't back within 4 days, then I was going to try to make an escape myself. However, 3 days later, early in the morning, we heard the sounds of machine gun fire coming from aircraft that were flying over the hill, and they were blasting the hills surrounding the area we were in. About a half hour, 45 minutes later, 5 tanks came in. These tanks were from the 1st Cavalry Division, the 5th Cavalry Regiment. They surrounded the hut that we were kept in, and to keep us from receiving fire from the Chinese. They put us on the leeward side. They backed out and went down the road for about a half hour, turned around, and about an hour later we were home free, back with our own units. Probably the happiest day of my life.
We would have been drafted in those days. Almost everybody got drafted when you were about, around 18, something like that, when they were drafting everybody. They don't have a draft now, but we did then, so we didn't want to walk through Korea, so we preferred the Air Force.
Have your order of liquor in, and they bring it back to you the next time. Well, I always had all my guys, some of them didn't drink, but we all said, you get it, I'll pay for it. I always had a case or two of booze mixture under my bed. And now this is one of the interesting things about armies around the world. You always have some type of entertainment. It cost me 1 quart of old Canadian whiskey to get that piece of plywood.
Set up a ping pong table.
And then we had to, we made a ping pong table out of it, and we had a PX officer that brought up the ping pongs and the balls and
That's cool.
that.
I've flown on a lot of planes, but I was not a pilot.
Hey, just wondering.
Some of them were fun and some weren't. Some were very cold. I remember flying from Japan to Korea one time with a load of bananas, if you believe it. And I was in the back and it was cold, and there was these things that looked like a tube from a vacuum cleaner, corrugated tubes kind of. And I had one of them laying on some bananas aimed at me from this way, and I had another one sticking in my boot from the other way to try to keep warm. And I think we were probably 2.5 or 3 hours and miserable cold.
One of the things that my veteran told me about was there was oftentimes a lack of supplies at the air bases in the Korean War. And because of that, they couldn't build appropriate hangars for maintenancing and servicing the planes. Essentially, it was just a wooden roof, and there were generally no walls. So because of that, weather and wind would cause debris to be blown into the hangars, and a lot of times the planes would be in a state of disrepair and would be unflyable.
One of the things that I remember, a memorable thing from that time is, speaking of Harry Truman, I was coming home on leave when I was in the Air Force, and O'Hare Airport was just starting to open. And I went through a revolving door at O'Hare with my parachute, and the guy coming the other way was Harry Truman.
That night, I went to the officers' club, and then I met him.
Really?
Yeah.
And what did you think of him then? Did you know he would be the man you married?
He was just a man.
Just the man?
Yeah.
And then a week later, He brought me an engagement ring.
A week?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Did you find that ironic or too quick?
Too quick.
Too
So,
quick, she accepted.
so I took it.
Battles, and we'd all they at that war they would have maybe 1,000 men at night come screaming at him across the lines to kill him. These were night raids.